kids and hungry. I spend every Sunday just living good.
Morning guys, Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. I thought what we'd do today is we'd go ahead and clean our black powder shotgun, our double barrel. A little bit different cleaning it than it is cleaning a flintlock, so we'll do both of them in two separate videos. We'll do the shotgun today first because it's very easy disassembly. You can take everything, just the barrel off, and have the barrel to clean, whereas a flintlock, it's a little tougher. You've got to clean with the barrel on, so it's a little bit more of a tedious process. But a lot of people think that these black powder guns foul up really bad and have to be cleaned a lot, and the truth of the matter is journal accounts say that that's not really the case. I remember one story that I heard from a gentleman named Mark Baker, who was talking about a journal entry he had read, and I believe it was from George Morgan's journals, who was a trader who owned a trading post along the Kaskaskia down in Illinois, and he had made a bet with a British colonel that his long hunters could outshoot, any of his long hunters could outshoot the best soldier that this colonel had. And I can't remember what the bet was, so many shillings or gold pieces. But the point of the story is that, you know, they lined up and they were shooting 100 yards at a hogshead barrel. And a hogshead barrel is about 3 feet in diameter. They put that out at 100 yards and they took turns firing at this hogshead barrel until one of them missed. And the end of the story goes that George Morgan actually won the bet, and that his hunter, market hunter, had shot that hogshead barrel with his rifle or smoothbore, I can't remember which one it was, 100 times out of 100 times without ever cleaning his gun. So that tells me that that gun shot 100 times within the course of however long that took between reloading and resting and talking and upping the ante on the bets and things of that nature. Could have taken 2-3 hours for all I know. But it shot 100 times without ever cleaning the gun. Now, he may have swabbed the barrel. He may have, you know, picked the touch hole and things like that. He may have wiped out the pan with his hunting shirt to make sure that there was no residue in the pan. But as far as actually physically taking the gun down and cleaning it, that was not described in this journal according to the story that I heard from Mark. So that tells you that these guns are more resilient than people think they are. Now, I've only shot this 12 gauge 4 or 5 times and I'm going to clean it, but it's because I'm going to let it sit possibly for several days before picking it up and taking it to the woods again. And I think that's the difference. You know, these guys were shooting these guns on a daily basis, probably cleaning them, you know, on a couple times a week basis while they're sitting around camp at a minimum, because that gun was their bread and butter. I'm going to start this out with a little bit of a disclaimer here and say that, again, the modern day single shot 12 gauge is by far the easiest weapon to maintain in a wilderness environment, because you can take the barrel off very easily and have a complete pass-through barrel that you can then swab, throw in the creek, fill it with sand to scrub it out, whatever you want to do. Whereas your black powder guns have a plugged barrel on the end for the most part, unless you have a modern inline or something that you can take the breech plug out of. So that makes them more difficult to clean. But this gun is not too bad. You just take the ramrod out. Basically, you have a push pin here on the side, and if you can't get that up with your fingernail, you can use any type of a tool to lift that up with, whether it is a turn screw, which is a tool that's basically a screwdriver you would carry if you were doing this in 18th century fashion, early 19th century fashion, or you can just use a screwdriver and just pop it up just like that. At that point, you just pull that pin, cock both your triggers, and lift up on the barrel, and it comes completely off. Now you can clean your mechanism and all that and oil it, or you can take it completely apart, but there's really nothing to get dirty there except for the inside of the hammers. Everything that's going to get dirty is here. Now, we can take both of these. The advantage to this is really over a nipple gun or a flintlock is that because you've got this closed system on here that we talked about yesterday, which I noticed a lot of people didn't like this very well, and I got to tell you, I've shot it several times and I really do like it. You're not going to load this gun on the fly. You're going to load it, put your cap in there, and then you're going to have 2 shots, and you're going to carry this gun around at half cock so that it's ready to fire when you're hunting. You're not going to try to reload this thing on the fly. So anyway, because I've got this closed system, I can now fill these barrels with hot water and they're not going to leak out. I don't have to plug these nipples or plug a vent hole like I would have to on a flintlock or a nipple gun. We'll talk about that when we get to the flintlock. So for now, we're just going to go ahead and fill both of these up with water, barrels up with water, right out of the fire. And we've got a kettle on the boil right now, and we're just going to fill it up with hot water. We can mix ash with that water. In a situation in the wilderness, we can just mix ash with that water. If we had our ruthers, you know, we would probably put some soap in that water, some Dawn dish soap, some type of a grease cutting agent that would clean that black powder out better. But in this case, all we got is hot water and ashes, so that's what we're going to use. And we're going to fill the barrel completely up, let it sit for a couple minutes, dump it out, put some more water in there and scrub it. Now we could use our wiping stick or ramrod. Most of them have some type of attachment on them to be able to attach cleaning implements to them. But I have this 12 gauge cleaning rod right here, this antique one, and I've got a couple of attachments for it that make it real easy to use. I don't have to worry about it. It's got a bore brush, a swab, and it also has, you know, the classic cleaning jag. So that's what we're going to use to clean ours with today. So the first thing we need to do is move over here by the fire, mix a little ash in our water, and pour some hot water in the barrel. Okay, so I'm just going to scoop a few ashes up out of this fire bed here that's hot. This water's plenty boiling hot. Just throw a few hot ashes in there just to give it a little bit of acidity in the water to break down some of that black powder. And then, as I said, I'm just going to set the gun down and fill the barrel that I shot with hot water. Try not to get a bunch of bits in there. Okay, got it up to the top now. We'll let it sit there for a few minutes, and then we'll swab the deck, as it were. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our barrel, dump most of the water out of it, and then I'm going to take my brush, shove it down inside. You can see that water coming up out of there. And I'm just going to scrub this barrel really good with the water and the lye and the ash and all that still in it. And I'm going to do that a few times, and then I'm going to fill it back up again with hot water. Dump out the residual that's in there now. Not too black. And we're going to repeat. Now once that water is running out of there fairly clear, I'm going to go ahead and take that rear nipple completely off of there, just like that. And I had already unscrewed it so it was finger tight. You see this one's tighter than that one is because I hadn't shot this bore. But I'm going to go ahead and take them both off. I'll have to use my tool to get that one off. And I'm going to let them dry out. And I'm going to stand this barrel upside down. But first, I'm going to swab it with this. So I'm just going to put that on here. And I'm not really trying to dry the gun at this point or oil the gun. I'm not trying to oil it at all. All I'm really doing is getting any excess moisture out of there and any residue that's left in there out. And then I'm going to let it air dry. Upside down, like I said, just like this. And at that point, she's ready to rock. If I'm going to do anything, I'll put a very light patch through there with maybe some fixing wax on it, or some bear fat, or some tallow, and it would be very, very, very light because I don't want any powder sticking to that barrel when I pour it down. So you can't go greasing the crap out of these barrels to keep it from rusting on the inside. You're going to have that problem when you pour powder down there. It's going to stick to the sides of your barrel. So you got to keep it pretty dry in there. Okay, once I've let that thing dry, I've got a piece of like brain tan. It's really like chamois, which is artificial brain tan. All works the same. And this thing's been sprayed down with like a Remington gun oil. And I keep this in my haversack with my gun cleaning stuff just for this purpose. I don't use it for anything else. And I'll wipe everything down with that real good. All the wood, all the metal plating and everything else. And this is going to be my rust preventative basically. But I'm not going to use it inside the barrel like I said. But I will wipe the whole outside of the barrel down with it really good. Okay. It's a real simple thing to put this dude back together. There's really nothing to it. Just push that pin back in there to hold the barrel on. Slide your ramrod back in. And replace your nipples. And there we go. And I'll store it upside down for another half hour or so just to make sure it's good and dry, and then I'll put it back in the sleeve and it'll be ready to go. Okay guys, well, I'm Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you joining me here for another video. One thing real quick, just a tidbit, I guess you want to call it that. I shot some footage of a deer, and I hope it's going to be at the beginning of this video. I think I got good footage. From about 40 yards away across a pond, and I zoomed in so I could get some footage of him. But we walked in here about a mile from my log home, and we came around the same side of the pond that deer was on, carrying a camera, a bucket, a rifle, and a haversack, and didn't spook that deer off enough to run away. And I think that's important to understand because we as hunters and woodsmen need to be able to get close to game to be able to kill it. 40 yards with a shotgun and a round ball is no problem. If I'd have worked hard at it, I might have been able to get closer to him than I was, but I had my hands full and I just dropped my stuff, took a few steps so I could get in a clear where I could get a shot of him, and then shot him on the camera. But I think that movement in general is an important thing to understand, and knowing where the game's going to be, being able to kill the game, that's all fine and dandy. If you can find water, you're going to find game. And if you can get within 40, 50 yards, you're going to be able to kill it. But you got to be able to get in the right position, and you've got to be able to be there long enough for that deer to give you a shot, or that animal to give you a shot before you spook him away. They're not dumb. They know you're there. They knew we were here before we ever stepped foot around that pond. But we didn't spook that deer off, and that's the key. How do you move without spooking the animals? And I really can't give you the secret to that because there's no formula. It's just a matter of not being aggressive in your movements, moving slow, moving deliberately, watching where you're stepping, and then keeping your eye on that animal to see what his posture is. And we talked early on, in my videos about animal posture, and as part of Pathfinder Phase 1 is animal posture. And if you pay attention to the posture of that animal, you can get very close to an animal, even one that already knows you're there. I thank you for everything you do for me, for my school, for my family, for all my sponsors, supporters, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.